Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Raji Narayan Singh, and let's queer up trans rights. U.S. Olympic Committee bows to Trump, bans trans women. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee has officially barred transgender women from competing in women's sports, a move quietly made on Monday and now drawing national outrage. The change came in response to the Executive Order 14201 signed by Donald Trump earlier this year. The new policy, summarized in a single vague paragraph, says the committee is, quote, committed to protecting opportunities for athletes, end quote, and will work with the international Olympic bodies and sports federation to ensure that women have a fair and safe competition environment, consistent with Executive Order 14201 and the Ted Stevens Olympics and Amateur Sports Act. Trump's executive order signed February 5th threatens federal funding for trans-inclusive sports programs and falsely claims that trans women whom the order misgenders as men have invaded more than 11,000 competitions. He also repeated a baseless rumor that a male boxer won a women's gold medal in Paris. In reality, the boxer Imane Khelif is a cisgendered woman who was targeted by far-right misinformation. The National Women's Law Center has condemned the Olympic Committee's decision. CEO Fatima Goss Graves said, quote, "The world is watching with alarm at the loss of freedom and opportunity in our country, especially as the United States is expected to host future Olympic events." End quote. The committee will learn, as so many other institutions have, that there is no benefit in appeasing the endless shifting and petulant demands coming out of the White House. End quote. She warned the vague new policy could lead to humiliating sex testing practices and further harm women athletes. For LGBTQ athletes across the country, this ruling marks a devastating step towards in the fight for equality and inclusion on the world stage. Wow. Okay. This topic is just such a hot button topic. Even with amongst us trans women, there's some trans women that don't necessarily support fully trans women playing with cisgendered women. I am on the fence a little. I think that it really, and I know some of the community is going to be like, "You fucking bitch, I'm going to," but
that's never stopped you before.
But I speak my truth, and I have to be authentic. I think it's really a lot of times case by case, because someone like Jazz Jennings, for instance, right, who started hormone blockers very young, and went on hormones and all of that, she would be. Probably there'd be women that were cis women that would be stronger than her, but it's a really, really weird thing. And, they took this hot button topic and they blew it up to make it more than what it is, because there's not that many trans women that play sports anyway.
0.5% of all athletes are trans.
There you go.
5% of all athletes
I'm surprised it's that large.
Are trans, okay? And there is zero data proving anything, nothing. You know what I mean? Get the data together and then we can talk.
Now, listen, Serena Williams would beat my ass.
Of course.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I mean by it just depends on the scenario, because someone like Serena Williams is probably way stronger than me. But I was talking to a friend, if there were enough trans women's athletes for us to start our own leagues, that would be interesting, because look how women had to, cis women had to, because they couldn't play with the men. But there's not enough of us to do it, because I think there's this, for a lot of us trans women, we're kind of in the middle, we might be stronger than a lot of cisgendered women, but we're not stronger than the alpha male. Like we're like, like it's that middle ground for a lot of
Well,
us.
and I mean, and I've had like, girlfriends go through transition when they are on their meds where they can't even pull out a chair because they've got no strength at all, I mean, so again, based by case or also just doing the data, we can learn so much from something like this. You know what I mean? And are you really giving a safe space to cisgendered women, or are you teaching them how to bully another marginalized group of people?
And
you
then,
know what I mean?
And then doesn't it come down to skill too? Skill set.
Yes.
Because that plays a lot into the competition. With sports.
So I
Trini, what do you think, baby boy?
I'm probably the person who's been the most outspoken about. I don't really think that transgendered women should be with cisgendered women in sports. And it has nothing to do with gender identity. The reason why we separate the two sexes is because the male body against the female body, there's just no competition in the elite level. I mean, to get to if you're talking about running, like in any of the distance running, I mean, you probably have 30, 40, 50 males before you get to the number one female. And so I'm happy that they created women's sports to give them a chance, to be part of it.
Oh, thank you so much for giving us a chance, man.
Yeah, because if it was just about the stats, they would never get a chance to play, Yeah. And so it's not about the identity, it's about the actual physical body. And as much as I've tried to look up as much as I can, and I'm constantly looking up stats, and once a male goes through puberty and then say transitions, they still have the bone density, they still have the lung capacity, they still have the height, they still have other advantages. But having said that, there's also unfair advantages in men's sports against other men.
Yeah.
Like if you put the Honduran basketball team against the American basketball team, their average height of the men in there.
5'5".
Yeah, something like that.
Excellent point.
I do love that in boxing, they kind of compare it by stats, the reach, the weight, and I would be much more in favor of something like that happening in other sports so that it actually makes it not just fair for a transgendered person, but two males. It's a better fight to watch two people who are actually matched and they have, see who has the better skill.
Like some kind of preliminary test before.
Like some categories, and unfortunately, our sports system isn't designed that way, and we have to figure out, do we want to change that? Another thing that I have a disagreement about is that these private organizations like the NBA or the Olympic Committee, they shouldn't be having political pressure by the politicians, right? They should be able to do their own thing. So I don't like that. I don't like that the president is weighing in on a private organization. Let them do what they want to do. They're out for money anyways. Maybe when it comes to Title IX, and when it comes to scholarships, that's a little bit different. And then when it comes to intramural sports, I think everybody should be included, right? If it's not at the elite level, let everybody play,
right?
That's what I was thinking, the
So,
professional level.
here's a question for the table. How come we're not talking about anybody going from F to M? There are plenty of, male presenting folks walking around that are trans also, and nobody's worried about them playing sports.
Because we know the male body is predispositioned to be better at the elite level.
And that's it.
That's why they don't care. That's why they don't care.
I also think it has a lot to do with misogyny. I've seen in my life that society seems to have, and there's exceptions, but society seems to be more tolerant when it comes to women being like masculine and the tomboy as opposed to the sissy.
Correct.
Because it's almost like when you're born male and you negate your maleness, society is like, how freaking dare you do that? You were born male in a male world. How could you negate your maleness? I remember growing up, like, there were tomboys. No one really had a problem with that. But the sissies, oh my God, they were calling me faggot at 4.
Yeah, nobody went to go beat up the tomboy girls, but they went to go bully the sissy boys.
The sissy boys. And the societal expectation starts so young because you can see two little girls walking and holding hands and no one bats an eye.
Yep.
You let two little boys walk down the street holding hands. They might not say anything, but in their mind they're thinking, you know, that they need to cut that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so I think a lot of it is around misogyny.
Now, if I could add, in terms of back to the sports, I leaning towards your first initial point, the latter half of how it's all ranked. I think it should be organized by skill set. So strength testing, flexibility, other aspects of like your physical capabilities that lend towards the specific sport that you're participating in. Simone Biles, I'll be damned to find a man that can do what she does.
That's a bad bitch.
So many people have tried, they can't.
Yep.
So if gender is removed from the ranking system and you still have the first 50 best athletes be men, then that's what it naturally is going to be. But for us to incorporate gender into it ourselves is removing the capabilities of women who are stronger than men from competing with men, or based off whatever gender you are. I think that scaling system should be removed, and it should be purely based off your physical capabilities. If I'm stronger than you, if you're stronger than me, the strongest one goes to the Olympics. It doesn't matter what's below the table. Whoever is best at the sport is who they send up there.
So then wouldn't that pretty much take out women from sports? Like 90% of women against the men, 95% of women?
Well, you're thinking all sports and all the events lend towards male. There are a number of sports that don't require you to be a man to be successful.
Golf.
Well,
there are quite a bit of Olympic sports.
But I mean, some of the main ones that we watch, like those.
Well, I don't watch. No, you can't say
that.
Okay. Despite what is popular or not, there are a number of sports that do not require you to be a man to be successful at it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at that point, regardless, have the best athletes do it, and in that are gonna be women.
Okay, there are some women that are stronger.
Sure,
than you.
There are some better.
Sure. I mean, I'm totally fine if a woman can play in the NFL and be on a male sports team. You know, it's one of these biological situations. It is skewed when it comes to physical activity towards men.
And you have to agree, we don't have the data.
Yeah.
We don't have
we have some data that shows that male bodies. Because you're talking about cis women in general being able to.
What do you picture a cis woman's body looks like?
Women that could beat the ass of men.
They're not all built like femininely like Faye.
When we're in the elite world, they are not there.
Okay, but there are a few. And they should be allowed to compete if they want
and
to.
I agree with that. I'm just saying it doesn't go the other way. It goes only one way.
But again, 0.5%.
Yeah.
Okay, are transgender. Okay, and we're gonna get to the point where they're gonna go, okay, time to check. You know what I mean? Pull down your pants. Like, are we gonna get to that point?
Well, I don't know if you all remember that runner, Casper was the last name, in South Africa. This was some years ago, and when I saw her, I thought it was a man running, and there was a big thing where they ended up having to test her to make sure she was a woman. I don't know if you all remember the story, but they did, and it come to find out she was female, but she had the X
and the Y.
Yeah, she had the X.
And that was the same
with Imane Khelif.
Yeah,
so we did plenty of stories on that poor girl.
Yeah,
and they changed her life forever. Okay, her career is effed.
And then you have intersex, like true intersex, which is that's maybe 0.01% of all trans people. But what do you do with that? And I don't have the answer.
Well, intersex is much more common than you think. Okay, it's just as common as having green eyes or red hair. To be take a trans. It's a trans. Trans Social does these trans classes and courses.
Yeah.
We have able to learn about it. Okay, and so. If we want to go into intersex, you know that doctors are just able to pick whichever one they want without asking the parent first. So then this person that goes along life with the wrong thing between their legs, and in their mind they're not.
Yeah.
You know? And they're not even checked, and it's like, and then they go through their lives in the wrong body.
And listen, there's a variety of intersex people, because there's the ones that are born with both genitals. Then there's the one that's born with a really, really small penis, and they usually make the decision to cut it and make a vagina.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones that are internally intersex. There's no physical.
Right, but they might have a uterus or something.
You're right.
Like that.
Or, And also
Morgan
Mayfair.
I'm not saying anything.
My director.
Your director over at Trans Social, right?
Yeah.
They have a sensitivity training. Excuse me, that's what it's called. It's a trans sensitivity training, and I learned so much from it. And it's because Morgan has done he tells his own story, right?
Yeah.
He was born intersex. He was also born a female. And when he was still in a woman's body, he was trying to have a kid with his then partner. And nobody would tell him that he had the X and the Y chromosome. Nobody, his whole life. Until he tried to carry a child. Right? And so then in his 30s and 40s to find that out. And then, doing the research and finding out, and then putting together the sensitivity training to find out that it's more common than we thought. And there's nobody fighting for the rights of that baby right when they're born, and giving the doctor just, cut that one off because it's hanging out. No problem. Make them a girl.
And that goes back to misogyny, because they're like, oh, the penis is way too small. That penis is a micro penis. He won't be able to make it as a man in this world. So let's make it a vagina. Let's make it a girl and create a vagina.
Crazy. All right, we've got to move on, but we can talk about this for another hour.
We could.
So much there. And folks at home, when another story like this pops up, we'll get into it again, because it is what we have to. We have to have these conversations to just explore and know what the next steps are, right? What we got to be fighting for.
And it was so nice. I feel like this is how these conversations should happen. Respectful of one another and just talking it out. So I appreciate that from everybody.
Amen, Trini. And that is the big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.